Hello YouTube, I Fix It All here, Team I Fix It All. Patient today is an 87 Merc Cougar. It's a restoration inside and out, including the motor. We've got ourselves a 331, it's a 302 stroker. Set of heads on it from, I think, a D2 casting, but they're set up like a 69 Windsor heads. They're milled 53cc. The block is 30 over. 160 intake, 194 exhaust. Or no, 194 intake, 160 exhaust. I think that's right. Yeah. Stamped right on my head right there. Yeah. And where was that? Beehive springs for our valves. Roller rockers. We've got ourselves some Isky pushrod guides here, and the purpose of this video today is to get these rockers set up. I thought I had everything set up. We started, oh yeah, we're running Tweaker, a tuner for your old EEC4 computer. Tweaker just plugs right into your old computer and manages the entire engine management system with four programmable tunes we can put on one little dongle device. So it's a pretty fun car so far, but it's running like crap because we believe the valves were not seating all the way. Now, I had set up these rockers originally, the standard method of turn the lock nut on your stud and until the push rod starts to grab. We all know the drill. And stop there, and then start your just give it another quarter turn and then lock it down with your locking nut and poly lock. Well, apparently after all of my lifters hydraulically pumped up, it's my belief, I believe my valves weren't seating all the way. As a result, I started digging in and looking at the existing studs, and I noticed some of the studs were how do I put this? They were siliconed up, and some of them had black silicone, some had orange. I wasn't real sure what was going on with that, but according to my math, I was looking at I needed taller studs because I was only catching like 1 or 2 threads on my poly locks. When the motor was a fresh build, I was catching like 4.5 threads, and that's kind of sketchy. But after the whole engine pumped up, I was in here piddling around doing stuff and only 2.5 threads. So I started looking into it. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to get past installing 2 studs that are longer. I'm going from 1.7 inches to 1.9. And then we're also going to get 2 studs installed. And I'm going to try to show you what I believe is a decent little trick to get these pushrod guides oriented the right separation. Now, for those of you who don't know, these were pedestal heads before, and what we do is we machine down the thickness of this and couple that with your stud height information. Here's my new studs right here. New stud, old stud. Yeah, somewhat of a difference there. Put these back with these right here. These were from them. So another thing we're going to talk about is roller rocker geometry. This isn't math class. It's called the angle of the dangle here. It's more or less, I was at first thinking my push rods were probably too long. So I took a second guess at it. I called the machine shop who did my my engine boring and line boring and all that for my block, and told him what I was experiencing. And he says, well, check your rocker arm geometry. I learned a little bit from him, but he showed me a neat little trick on making sure your geometry is right by using a Sharpie. So a lot of machinists already know this, so if you already know it, you're not impressed. That's what the video is going to try to be about. But the idea here is that the rocker arm geometry needs to be, hang on, cat, psst, go. That's how you do that. So if your push rod is too short or too long, a couple things happen. Ideally, you want the center line of that roller rocker. Trying to adjust some light here. This pin, I'm not sure if I'm dead center or not. That looks a lot better. Okay. So ideally, this is your stud that's always a fixed position. It never moves, and your roller rocker moves against it. If your push rod is too short, notice what happened to the center line of that pin now. This is the top of your valve stem. And I've taken notes over here. This is your valve. This is the exhaust manifold side of your head if you're down on the ground looking at the front of the engine. And that's the intake side of your head for a V application, you know, because you'll have some other pistons over here and another head. So in this condition, if your push rod's too short, your roller is favoring toward the intake. If your rockers are experiencing that geometry with the valves closed, you are wrong. With two valves closed, this is just a two-valve system, not a 4V or whatever. This tells you that your push rod's too short because the roller is not over top of the center of the valve. And so on. You could actually have a condition where you're there we go. Where you're too far that way on the tip of your valve. And there's a lot of latitude, but at the end of the day, you want this roller rocker to live in the center of the valve tip all the time. If your push rod's too long, you could have a condition where your roller is that way too far, and that throws off the geometry. And this is all based on with the valves dialed in and closed. And you won't know if you're out of geometry until you do a little trick that the machine shop told me, because everything will look just fine. Once you've determined your push rod height is perfect and you still don't have valves that are seating right, and you're not getting enough threads on this, you got to replace your studs. So step one is I'm going to install a pair of studs, and the right product is right there for this. It's thread sealer, not RTV, guys, but you can if you want. I'm going to put in a pair of studs, and I've already got a pair of Isky pushrod guides over there, and I'll pause the video and get those positioned. Okay, we're back. Got two studs installed, and a lot of white goop around there. We're going to drop in push rods in these two slots right here. And I've got a little bit of wobble room in there, I believe. Well, I did. Let's see if I've got them just, I think I've got them just loose enough. I'm going to drop a rocker arm on, and I'm going to see if I can't get that push rod lined up. What you want to do is have that opening straight in line with that perfectly. And over there too. So let's see if I can do that. Got me a rocker arm here. And, well, dang it, I need a push rod. Go get me a push rod, pick one. Two. Mark the tops of these orange because it was showing my wear pattern side. So, drop that in. Make sure your flat side on your rocker arm is facing up. Drop that push rod in there. And I need me a rocker arm. And the rocker arm is over here. Hope I explained this well enough over here. Basically, you just want to make sure your rocker arm lives right in here. And if you're too tall, I'll show you a trick in a little bit to tell if that geometry is right. Put that stud with these guys. Is that an old one or a new one? That's an old one. We'll drop this rocker in. And that Allen nut is up tall. This Allen nut is way high also. See what's going on here? One of them looks like crooked feet. I'm going to rotate this, see if I can't gain any movement down on the, there we go. Look down on there, you'll see that push rod guide moving. Let's see if I even catch that on camera. See that move? Now what you're after, oh, I wish I could turn this one. Yeah, it's moving too. Okay, so I'm going to move the light. What you're after is, now that we know it's moving, or the push rod guides are moving, what you want to do is get your roller rocker wheel, this guy, centered up on your valve stem. I'm going to start with this guy first. So we know that's not right. See that? But if I go over here a little bit, that'll probably be good. And we'll do the same to this guy. I'm going to accidentally hit a button here. Excuse my hand in the damn thing. All right. Focus, you fuck. I didn't ever think I could ever say that. I just did. I don't know if anybody watches AVE, but he says that a lot. So I want to get this wheel centered up. And we know that's not correct. See that? And we know that's not correct. So we want to go over a little. And that should be good. And that should be good. What that means is now I can take these nuts off. remove the rocker arms. Hear the gunshots in the background? It's the sound of freedom, by God. Alright, so rocker arm comes off. And like most Ford people, we set it in the old trusty radiator toolbox. What we have here is hopefully now centered up pushrod guides, where the push rods are in line with everything. Straight as an arrow. It does look like it too. And what this means is if you get these adjusted just right, these pushrod guides, they will rub on the guide's least amount and reduce wear on your guide and your pushrod. But it'll also contribute positively to your rocker arm geometry. So with that being said, I'm going to now do a final torque on these two studs. Now, pedestal people out there who want to go to stud, now that you see these installed, you get the idea of how much you have to mill away. You have to mill away this pedestal, in my case, the thickness of this guide plate only, and to include any stud height that you want to achieve. Everybody could probably start off with like 1.9 inch studs and cut down if they want, but 1.7s are generally going to be good for a stock application. But for a very aggressively milled head like these, where there's the bottom's been cut down, I forget how much, I think it was like 60 thou. These are 53cc heads. In my case, I had to go with longer studs, but my push rods were the correct length. So I'm pretty confident that I have my push rod guides adjusted. Now I need to torque these down to about 45, 50 foot-pounds. And I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Got them torqued down, and I threw my rockers on up there to make sure I'm still centered up. Now comes the, I guess kind of, it's the cool part. What I've done is the valve tip, I've cleaned it with carburetor cleaner to get rid of any oil. I need that to be free of oil. Now I'm hunting down my Sharpie. I'm going to color in, I'm going to blotch in the top of this whole valve stem till it's completely blacked out. Completely blacked out. And you want to take your roller wheel and clean the wheel off with carb cleaner as well. Pausing the video, I'm going to set a couple of rockers down and I'm going to snug them down and I'll be right back. I'm just going to take those nuts and spin them on until the push rod barely is grabbing. So I got these snugged down, push rods barely grabbing on each one. Our guide plates torqued. I've got a ratchet down there that I got to fight to get, but I'm going to rotate the motor a little bit. I'm going to send that rotor button around as required. Let's see if I can get my ratchet situated. Alright, so we're just going to bring that rotor button around one full time. Let these rockers do their magic. There's the exhaust valve kicking in. Intake should be coming around number 1 dead center. Number 1, but I'm going to run it one more time. Center it around once more. Intake is going. It's come back up. Should be back on there. Alrighty. Now I should be able to take these nuts off, and a mark should be transferred. Be right back after I take the rockers off. So I've rotated the engine around about 3 times, and my rocker arms, the roller wheels, while they were under spring pressure, transferred a mark onto the Sharpie area of my valve stem. And here's what we have. You can see this one a lot better than that one. See if I can get some different light. Different ways of light. Well, I can guarantee you I can see it here in real land. But notice the mark that it left behind is dead center. I believe it's dead center. I wish this one would have showed up better. Yeah, it's probably going to show. Now that tells me that the rocker is always going to be dead center of the valve stem, and it has the least amount of back and forth motion on the valve stem. If your push rod is too long or short, your line will be lower on the valve stem toward the exhaust manifold, or your line will be up higher on the valve stem toward your intake manifold. And in some cases, if the geometry is really whacked out, your line is going to be very thick as well. With this line being a thin line and being centered, I know my geometry of how my rockers are going to act against the valve stems are perfect without firing the engine up. That's the end of this video. So I hope anybody out there fine-tuning their valve train learned something. Like or comment. I'm not supported by anybody. I don't have any products out there, no companies or what have you, so can't demonetize me. We'll see ya.